Let us start with a silent prayer. A very good morning. I welcome you all for today's international webinar on the power of positive thinking in COVID-19 pandemic world. The COVID-19 pandemic may be stressful for people, and public health actions such as social distancing can make people feel isolated and lonely and can increase stress and anxiety. The world is in the throes of losses and does not know what to do in the wake of losses. In this situation, we are blessed to have a resourceful person like Dr. Dorothy Davis, Associate Professor of Education, Cabell's University, United States of America. She was a brilliant student, bachelor degree from Cabell's University, master's degree in curriculum and instruction, Cabell's University, and a meritorious achievement in rank 1 certificate in gifted education. PhD in professional studies from Capella University. She is a very good educationist, passionate teacher, and dedicated social activist. Dr. Doty is very pleasant, enthusiastic, energetic, and optimistic, spreading a positive energy to everyone. Positive thinking helps with stress management and can even improve our health. I hope you can experience the power of positive thinking in this session. Madam, we are very lucky with your valuable presence and thoughts during this blessed moment. Our sociology, family, and Carmel College, as well as everyone who participated in this webinar, warmly welcomes you. My
Thank,
heartfelt congratulations to everyone who has come together in this webinar using the possibilities of the social network system while we live in physical distance with this COVID-19. And the corona was adversely affect our public life and everyday activities, it is our great pleasure to be able to organize a webinar like this to help open up new avenues of mental survival with social commitment. Our college principal, Dr. Sister Catherine, the constant source of inspiration and support in every activities of the department. I welcome you, sister, with a heart full of joy and gratitude. Now, I am very happy with the young minds coming together from the different parts of the world for this webinar. I extend a warm welcome to all. Once again, I welcome you all. Wish you a happy and mindful session and fruitful day. Thank you.
hello. Hello. It is so good to be with you. It's my pleasure to be here with you. Um, so appreciate this opportunity, and I think it's exciting for us to connect on this global level like we are. And I do wish you all the very best during this coronavirus period. It has been a very unusual time, I think, for the world. And I know here in the United States, we have had many people suffer from the virus. And so during this quarantine, I have read a lot of books, and I continue to teach my classes, and I strive to share these ideas with my students. So I hope that you are also able to glean something from the information, and maybe some of the sources that I have will touch your heart too. My intentions are the very best for you all as we all deal with this global economic problem. But I am excited to talk with you about positivity. Foundationally, I want to emphasize that positivity is an attitude. And during this coronavirus pandemic, so many people have experienced anxiety and worry. They have been suffering on many different levels, psychological as well as sociological problems. Um, Some people have really panicked during this time, and many prayers have been lifted, especially for the frontline workers, the medical teams who have dealt directly with the sick people. But we have been so appreciative of those on the front lines on an essential level. We have had opportunities to go to the grocery stores, and we still had food. We still felt safe in our home, yet we still experienced so many different problems on so many different levels. Our economy has been hit, and I know it has been hit around the world. People have lost their jobs. We've had an increased price of gas and petrol and food. And some people have directly dealt with the diagnosis and of this virus and death. So it has been a terrible time globally. It's been a very unusual time. So here in the States, this is our 14th week of trying to contain the COVID-19 virus here in Kentucky. We continue to be urged to wear our face masks in public. We are frequently washing our hands with soap and water, and we're prudent in our social distance. So we must still be doing that. So here in the States, especially here in Kentucky, we are entering a phase where we are able to get out into the community a little bit more. Churches have opened, um, more businesses have opened, and they're available to us. Many people are wanting to go on vacation. It is summertime, so people are tired of being stuck in the home. So, as I prepared my talk for you for today, I have three basic points that I would like to talk about. And my first one is my connection in my work as a professor in the School of Education at Campbellsville University. My first connection is positive thinking in my role of working with college students. Um, the second are I have read many, many books, and I've listened to so many podcasts that have been um, by leading experts, primarily within the United States, but there have been some outside the United States. Most of them have been American writers and motivational speakers, and I personally have learned so much. I've tried to take these ideas in my classroom online, in online environment, to share some of these ideas with my students because they also have suffered some hardships that I learned along the way, actually. So, the third point that I want to share with you today is I found some really good blogs and information on some tips and strategies that we can all achieve to maintain a positive mindset during this time. So, so as I get into this, I'd like to talk a little bit about my role at Campbellsville University. I started teaching there actually in the year 2001, so I have been there for a while. Um, I enjoy working with college students, and in my work, primarily we are in the teacher training department. So our students, they're required to go out into the schools and they interact with teachers so that they can hone their professional skills. But they also work with students directly. They teach them, they interact with them. And, you know, we can't teach everything about the classroom from a textbook. A lot of their learning comes directly from their interactions with students. And so when the coronavirus hit, they were very limited in what they were able to do in getting out and working. We did not prepare them for online instruction. We prepared them to be face to face with their students in public schools. However, when the COVID virus hit and this quarantine hit, which was mid-March for us, everything shut down on us and we were all required to go online. That was a big deal. Some of our student teachers, they panicked a lot. Um, so anyway, my online instruction, we continued, and that part was okay for the most part. But I do teach graduate level students, and many of them also started teaching online at that point. All of our public school children, they were quarantined in their homes. So this positive mindset connection was crucial for all of us to hang in there. You know, we have to be flexible with uncertain circumstances like this. Um, you know, there were some things that I couldn't tell my students because I was experiencing some things also for myself. One thing that I did learn with the classes, I taught 4 classes during this quarantine time, and 2 of those classes were already in the online format. However, 2 other classes were on campus and we were in a face-to-face format. So after the virus hit and we went into this quarantine, I was concerned that I didn't hear from some of my students online for a very long time. They had technology problems. Some of them didn't have technology in the home. Some of them were attempting to write a paper for me on their iPhone. So they struggled, they panicked, they were worried about their grade. It was terrible. It was not a good experience for them. So anyway, I think that we did end the semester in May on a positive note. But you know, the other part of all of this is for our seniors who were prepared to graduate in May. You know, they didn't get to experience all of their senior activities on campus, our senior recitals and concerts and award ceremonies, and our commencement exercises. Everything was completely shut down, and our students missed out on a lot of normal opportunities. So anyway, that reached my classroom, and I tried to share some of the resources with which I'm going to share with you in a minute with them to lighten their load and to give them a little more peace in their heart. You know, as a professor, they were very worried about their grade and the connections of things. So there were a lot of dynamics going on in this shift. So I want to just emphasize a minute ago, the she presented a little bit of my background, but I wanted to share some of my background in terms of my literacy courses that I teach, as well as gifted education. So I love teaching those classes, and I actually read a lot on the side for that. My classes are designed around a theoretical framework of Jean Piaget's cognitive development theory, and I also like to emphasize Lev Vygotsky's social construction theory. They're very appropriate for what I teach and for the learning process altogether. So through those types of readings, quite honestly, it led me into some of these experts on positive thinking and the growth mindset and some of this other related research that is fascinating. And my students also really enjoyed exploring these types of theories and articles and what experts have to say for what we need to be doing with students altogether. So I think it was very helpful for them. Um, but the other part of this, part of my goals is not only for my students to really understand the theoretical framework for what they're going to do, but it's really for their personal development. And they were not able to do a lot of things that they needed to do. So they were striving for their own personal development experiences by a lot of other learning situations that were happening outside the classroom. Such things like grit and perseverance, better time management, maybe setting better goals and achieving them. So it really was part of their own personal development. So the classes that I teach, I love them because I feel like I'm enhancing my students to embrace things positively. So I personally find it rewarding, and I really didn't have all the answers for my students, but I have been vitally concerned with their overall health and their wellness and continual learning, which is hard to do sometimes in an anxiety, panic stricken format. So that really led me to some of the other research and the articles and books and things and podcasts that I wanted to share with you. Um, Last night, my husband and I were kind of looking at the world numbers for the virus. Actually, we were looking in the United States, and here in Taylor County, in Campbellsville, we have 30 confirmed cases so far. So I think here in our community, we've been doing good. For the most part, we've been wearing our masks and washing our hands and keeping the social distance. We've been doing that, following the protocol. So Kentucky, the state of Kentucky, on the other hand, we have had over 13,000 confirmed cases. We've had 526 deaths. This information is coming from the World Health Organization. Um, Now, Kentucky compared to New York is a different story. New York had 392,000 confirmed cases and 30,000 deaths. New York has been hit hardest in the United States. It's known as the epicenter. They had the highest rates here. The United States had 2.36 million confirmed cases and 122,000 deaths. That's a lot. Worldwide, 9 million. So this pandemic is a real thing. And I personally um, have tried to maintain protocol and keep myself well and avoid all sickness and avoid, the contact with others that could potentially cause. And I have to stop and think, even for my future endeavors and for yours, what will the new normal be after this pandemic? One podcast that I was listening to recently is they anticipate good out of it. Um, our perhaps our restaurants and our schools and facilities, maybe they will be cleaner. Maybe they'll be a little more sanitized when we go and visit. The food preparation in our restaurants, there will be more there will be more protocol for them to maintain the cleanliness of it all. So this podcast, this particular one that I listened to the other day, it was really good in terms of all of us being even more engaged in healthful practices. That's a good thing. We are still involved in thinking about what our school situation might be like this fall. It's going to be different. It's going to be a lot of online. Hopefully, it can be a little bit of face to face instruction, but that's the plan right now that we have for our future. So, a question that I have for you all, and you all can chime in on the chat for this question, but how have you all spent your time during this pandemic, during this quarantine? Just chime in with some questions, just with your the nature of your activities on the chat. What have you been doing during this pandemic? Like I said, I taught classes in May, right after our spring term classes ended. I jumped right into summer school, and we are currently in week 7 of summer school. And I have another class starting next week. So I virtually have not even stopped teaching. Um, but I do spend a lot of my time reading. I love to journal. And that's what I did. I did extensive research. I stumbled from one positive book or article or podcast from the best of the best. And the ones that I read, they have all been American motivational speakers and writers and researchers. That's primarily how I spent my time. But I am interesting. Um, I'm so glad that you're attending webinars. You know, we need to be learning. This is the time to get ourselves organized. We're stuck at home. Let's organize some things at home. You know, I have found myself cleaning a little bit more than maybe I normally would. I'm kind of a neat freak anyway, but I have felt myself trying to really maintain. You know, when I go to the grocery and I bring home produce, I wash it. So I have done some things a lot differently too, but I have spent an enormous amount of time just reading novels and for my personal enjoyment, but also research. Okay, so we need to be spending our time um, developing ourselves. So one book that I read, my favorite book out of everything that I'm going to share with you tonight, is this book by Norman Vincent Peale, and it's called The Power of Positive Thinking. And this is, if you could see, I don't know if you could see it. This is the book, and it's really not a new book, but he has been excellent in terms of what the contemporary writers and motivational speakers have been talking about. Um, some things that he talks about in his book, he actually talks about how our mind works. He compares our minds and our situations when we're in a positive mindset versus a negative mindset. And in the negativity, and sometimes we don't even know the worry and the panic and the anxiety. And people who have lost their jobs, they have really spent some time, I guess, almost in agony, worrying about their families and putting food on the table. But Norman Vincent Peale, he talks about the negativity that we have in our life and the sickness that it can cause in us. Um, he says that we can protect ourselves from negativity. We can coat our mind from negativity. Now, being tired is one thing. We need rest, we need sleep. That's a physiological function, it's a health function. But he says that um, being negative is different. That taps into our attitudes and our interactions and our well being, our decision making. Okay, so the social and emotional impact about this, it's powerful. And he offers so many ideas. Um, this is not a new book. If you Google, you can find this book and perhaps order one. It's not expensive because it's a little bit dated. Um, but some of the themes that he wrote about that I wanted to share with you, and in fact, four main themes that he talked about in his book, I found podcasts and articles and so many other numerous people, researchers and psychologists and university professors, talking about some of these main ideas, these main points. And the first point that he made was a peaceful mind generates power. And I want to say that again. A peaceful mind generates power. You know, he says, I am the captain of my mind. I'm the general. I am the foreman. You are too. Don't give this control to anyone. You know, if you have a setback, that's one thing, but let's shift the negativity to think of solutions. Okay, so when this negativity comes into our thinking, it makes us not function well. And it causes hardship, it causes confusion. So once we get power over our thinking, then we can start seeing success. Some other things, Zig Ziglar is a motivational speaker, and he also talks about mindset. He says, your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. And I just love that. The quality of your thinking determines the quality of your life. So, in order to grow, be aware of your thoughts. You know, as a teacher, as a professor, this is kind of a natural thing that we talk about in our classrooms. In teaching, we have to be positive. Positive thinking correlates so highly with learning. Um, but our minds are powerful. So we really need to be feeding our minds with good, decent thoughts. And this is backed up by so many researchers. Many experts suggest that we begin and end our days with gratitude. What are we thankful for? That changes our mindset a little bit. Affirmations. You do things well. Not that we want to brag about ourselves, that's not always appropriate. However, the affirmations, the things that we do good, the things that truly make us happy, we need to focus on that. Okay. And during this quarantine time, many of you said that you're taking online courses, that you also are reading books, and I think that that's fantastic. Part of this aligns with with Piaget's theory for cognitive development. A lot of this aligns with his learning theory. But the other thing that Norman Vincent Peale talks about is spending time with great people. You know, who we interact is important. Um, Sometimes we take on activities of others or personality traits of others. So if you want to be successful, let's connect with those like-minded people. People do things very, very well, and we shouldn't be jealous of them because they're resources. We can learn from them. And I just think that that's a very powerful thing for us to remember in our mindset. Um, the second point that I wanted to mention to you, he says we need to strive to have constant energy in our life. Part of energy, where does it come from? Part of it is our health. It's the nutrition that we feed our bodies. Sugar, and I have a sweet tooth. I love sugar. I love sweet things. Sugar is so terrible for our health. It's toxic. Um, and that actually, I did watch a podcast about that too, and I didn't cite it in this, but you can Google that yourself and see the nature of the sugar connection with bad cells, with cancer cells. It grows cancer. And I don't have the researcher who actually said that, but you can Google it. You can find all kinds of resources about that. But our health, if you think about our health, it's not just the nutrition, but we get energy from our physical well-being. It's important for us to get up and move our bodies. Mental health. Mental health has been a critical issue in the United States for the last 10 years. We have had all all kinds of terrible things happen from mental unrest, from mental well-being and instability, emotional, spirituality. When our bodies are healthy, we're able to convert food to energy. The oxygen gives us the breath for us to move and to squeeze out all the energy and activity that we need to do. It's healthy for us to get out and walk. To socially distance, my husband and I try to walk every single night. We try to get in 10,000 steps. We don't always achieve that goal, but we do try to do that. And on our walks, we do get to see people and we talk. And there's a lot of beauty in that. During the quarantine, I think we've all missed people. I have really missed not seeing my students face to face because some of them are better in the classroom. And I feel like, we missed out on part of that healthy learning ability. I wanted to mention to you too a second person that I came across in regards to having energy and well-being. Um, his name is Dr. David Hamilton, and he wrote this book. It's called How Your Mind Can Heal the Body. He has a PhD in organic chemistry, and he actually left the pharmaceutical industry to educate people with books and knowledge. He wrote books to educate how people can harness their mind. And one critical point that I wanted to mention to him, he talks about stress hormones. And stress hormones like cortisol have such a terrible effect on our immune system. It leads to higher blood pressure. It leads to cardiovascular problems. Um, and he compared that to the kindness hormones like oxytocin, which when we feel good, when we exchange kindness with others, we reduce blood pressure. I think that's fascinating. I think that's such an important health component to feel better about what we do. And the last point that he says is we need to create our own happiness. And I just wanted to ask you, what kinds of things do you do that make you happy? I'm sure some of you enjoy music and perhaps you sing, perhaps you're an artist, or you're good at dance, or whatever makes you happy. There is a lot of research that supports that connection, okay, with a positive mindset. Um, So because of the time here, I want to jump down to a couple of other points. Brene Brown, she is a professor from the University of Texas, and her background is social work. So I just want to mention to you that she's done extensive research on vulnerability. And vulnerability is a real thing. Vulnerability prohibits us from achieving our true goals in life. She says that our brains are hardwired to pain. It's physiological. When we experience pain, sometimes we get nervous, our hearts beat. Um, it can be in crisis mode. So we need to maintain that type of vulnerability. Carol Dweck is another professor from Stanford University in California. And I just want to mention to you that she has done research on the growth mindset. And she compares that to the fixed mindset. Those with a fixed mindset, those people tend to have a limited amount of, they avoid trying new things. People with the growth mindset, they're willing to try new things. Maybe they fail, but they still try. And there's a lot of growth in regards to that. So, the last thing that I wanted to share with you today is just some tips and strategies for what you can do in developing the mindset. Many things I've already mentioned from Dr. Vincent Peale's book, but he says that, during the times of disruption, these are times ripe with opportunity. And I think this is an interesting connection because CEOs of big business like Microsoft, Apple, Google, during this downtime, that's when their minds were generated and they came up with fresh new ideas. Look at all these new technology platforms that we have. There's a lot of inventions going on during this downtime. So we cannot underestimate the power of positive thinking. Times of disruption, they can be dangerous for us. But if we convert that over to learning new jobs, skill sets, becoming a better writer, developing new skills in that way can help us have a better, a positive mindset. There's a lot of physiological growth, biological growth that happens here. Carl Jung says, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." And I think that's a profound metaphor for us to develop clarity. And I want to repeat that. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Let's awaken something inside of us. Let's awaken the creativity that we have. So anyway, just a few general everyday mood boosters that I found. Um, for us to be successful in this time or any critical time, research suggests that we need to be able to adapt to new situations. Reflect on your own lives. And I don't know your situation, but have you been able to adapt? A lot of people have not, and they are in this panic mode and they're stuck in their vulnerability. Brene Brown talks very extensively about that. So when we adapt to new situations, we're able to focus on the things that we love to do. Find things that you love to do. You feel happy. There's a happiness correlation there. Focus on your strengths and don't be shy. Think about what you're good at. But some other everyday mood boosters, just some very general. Focus on your mind, body, and spirit. Move your body. Try to get some exercise. Stretch your body. Listen to music. Get sleep. Sleep is such a healthy aspect that we lose sleep and our brains tend to refunction during sleep. Laughter. When the endorphins flow, when we get a good laugh and a good positive experience, happiness is when you feel good about yourself and you don't need anyone else's approval. I found that quote, I think, on Facebook recently. Meditation, connection socially. And I think in this day and time, part of our connection is through technology, through text, and through our phone conversations. It's a little bit different, or social distancing. Another thing that the research said was breathe. Just stop and breathe because it relaxes our anxiety, releases a little bit of tension in our muscles. And another point says play. Do some things that you enjoy that are mindless. Play a board game, play a card game, go out in the yard and play a game with children. The important thing here is we need to take action. Okay. And I'd like to conclude this talk with some words of advice from my father. That just this past Sunday, we celebrated Father's Day. And I've been thinking a lot about my dad. My dad passed away. He died in 2002. And he was one of those people that always had words of wisdom for me. In his fatherly love for me, he shared all kinds of words of wisdom. When I was a middle school kid, he prepared me for high school. And when I was in high school, he prepared me for college. And he was always concerned. He wanted to know about my nutrition and do I feel good and who are my friends. But two things literally stick out in my mind. Even today as an adult, one of them is safe driving tips. He told me what to do in the chaos of traffic. And I hear his voice sometimes in trying to navigate through traffic. Be a safe driver and protect yourself. The other thing that he told me, and there is such a strong connection to this positive mindset, he said, plan your work and work your plan. Stay focused on the main objective for what you want to achieve. And this takes critical thinking, lots of goal setting. We need to set our minds. We need to work hard and we never need to give up. Okay, so a hard work ethic never hurt anybody. And for us to be successful, for us to truly be successful, it takes hard work. And there's all kinds of challenges. But if we embrace those challenges positively, taking a pause, taking a deep breath as we go, we are developing power in our minds. Okay, so stay positive in your thinking. It is physiological, it is a very health thing, it's correlated to sickness. The mind is very powerful, and I want to leave on that note. So thank you for joining me today.
Now, the session is open for question and answer section. So participants can ask question now.
One thing that I just wanted to mention, some of the titles of books and the podcasts and some of the articles that I have. Like I said, they are American writers. I think it's some good stuff. I didn't investigate Indian writers. In fact, I really did a lot of this on my own time. But I wanted to mention, if you are interested in any of these books, I will be happy to get the titles to Sister Catherine, and maybe she will be able to share some of the books and sources with you if you're interested in reading them. No questions?
First, madam, first question.
Uh-huh. Okay.
How can I take care of my mental health?
Okay. For your mental health, I believe the question was taking care of your mental health. Um, so what you need to do mentally is, the nature of what you might watch on TV or what you read or the people that you engage with, be very cautious about that. Stimulate your mind with happy thoughts. The music that you enjoy listening to, going outside and taking a walk, protect your mind. Your mind is very powerful and it's easy to get into negative types of thinking. So, have a mentor or a friend or maybe a family member, but honestly, read a good book. And like I said, I will share some of the books that I have with Sister Catherine. It really was some good stuff. Some of this is podcast and it's on YouTube. And you can watch it on YouTube during your own time. But that's one thing that you can do with your mental health. And it's a real thing. It's a struggle. And if it's a serious condition, sometimes you might need to visit a pastor or a counselor or a professional to help you with some of your thoughts. That's what I would encourage you to do. I'm not an expert on that, but that is one thing that I would definitely tell my student.
Madam, next question is, can you can you explain major health benefits of positive thinking?
Yes, the major. Okay, so in regards to some research that, let me go back to this one source. Dr. David Hamilton, I want you to remember that name. He actually, he's an interesting guy. He shared some things about, oh, let me see. Yeah, David, excuse me just a minute while I get back to him. Okay, David Hamilton wrote this book and it was titled How Your Mind Can Heal Your Body. So let me just mention a little bit about him. David has a PhD in organic chemistry and spent several years in the pharmaceutical industry developing drugs for cardiovascular disease and cancer. So he was inspired by the placebo effect, and he left the pharmaceutical industry to write some books and to educate people in how they can harness their own mind and emotions to improve their health. So he is the one that talked about our hormones. Our hormones are natural, but we do have stress hormones like cortisol, and sometimes they go crazy in our bodies and they affect our immune system. Okay, they lead to high blood pressure, and that's dangerous for our cardiovascular health. So he learned and he pushes the concept of kindness, because when we experience kindness and that happiness connection, a kindness hormone, he says, is oxytocin. And when we experience that, that can reduce your blood pressure and it can increase your immune system. And during this coronavirus, that's one thing that we need to work on. We need to boost our immune system so that we can be a little healthier in that aspect. David Hamilton, that's a really good source for you to read. I did find a website online for him, and he's written several books. And he has lots of videos on YouTube if you find him. So that would be my suggestion on that.
Next is,
Mhm.
How can one remain positive in the most of people who dwell in negativity?
Yes, excellent question. Excellent question. I have some people in my life, and it seems like every time that I'm around them, it feels like negative energy. And their negative energy, I feel it because it makes me feel bad. I can just feel it. It's an energy connection in the room. So be very cautious of who you interact with. Um, People are contagious, and happy people and their high energy levels, that's contagious. We can learn from them. We also make those connections with negative people. And so one thing, if maybe you have to be around this negative person. But if you do, be as positive as you can. Be kind. Kindness, I can't underemphasize what I've learned about that, but what I'm reading about it, and there's so many experts that talk about kindness. And so that's what you need to remember. And one thing that I read recently, and I can't quote the article, but I do remember the point. And it was, when we are kind to others and somebody is unkind to us, really, most generally, it's not me causing anybody to be mad. Unkind people are unhappy people, and it's usually all about them. So those negative people, just be very mindful of the energy. I want you to notice that. Notice that energy level, and if you can stay away from it, sometimes I just pray for that person because that person has problems. But if you can avoid them, that's your best bet. If you can't, just you don't have to have too much interaction with that person. Just smile and be kind to that person as much as you possibly can, but protect your mind. Always protect your mind. It's powerful.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is how to stay away from negative memories from the past during a time of crisis like this.
Okay, yeah. Well, I want you to think about happiness. You know, as a literacy professor, I constantly ask my students a question and they'll reflect on it and they will write something down. Um, it's an educational practice. That's a typical thing that we do as teachers in a classroom, right? So on my own, though, I journal. In fact, that's how I got into all of these messages. I journal, and I have a notebook. I literally have a notebook filled with podcasts and books and these positive ideas. And that's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about happiness. What kinds of things really do make you happy? And it can be food, it can be your spouse, it can be a child, it can be your grandparent. Um, but it can be the books that you read. It can be the music that you listen to. Okay, it can be a dance that you do. Focus on what makes you happy. Record that. And one along the lines of happiness is gratitude is very, very important. At the end of the day, if you can be grateful for at least 10 things, that's going to shift this balance in your body, in your energy level. Okay, so be grateful. The coronavirus has been a terrible thing, but it has been so good because if I hadn't experienced this quarantine, I probably wouldn't have read these 25 articles. I probably wouldn't have, quite honestly. So think about the positive things that come out of situations. Think about what you're happy, what makes you happy, and do that mostly. Move your bodies, go outside for a walk, get in nature, get some fresh air. That's mind boosting. That's very mind boosting.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Next is how do you define social distancing and social segregation in the present situation of COVID-19?
Well, the instructions that we have for Kentucky, and it's our governor. Our governor has come on TV every afternoon at about 5 p.m., and he has been very proactive. Um, and in March, he shut down a lot of businesses. Our groceries were open, our churches were shut down, everything was shut down. He told us, quarantine, do not leave your home if you absolutely do not need to. Your doctor's appointments, it depends on what the doctor appointment was. Some of them were canceled and they were rescheduled. So, you know, he encourages us to stay at least 6 feet away from each other, farther than that, if you can. But he told us, we don't need to be touching each other when we're in the grocery store. We need to keep our distance. Our Kentucky governor, it really has been very good in communicating the sicknesses and the deaths that we've had. And quite honestly, it was scary. Um, Other states, the governors maintained other restrictions and guidelines. But in Kentucky, that was ours. Locally, our schools and our churches and most of the businesses, everything shut down on us. We were truly quarantined in our homes. We could only venture out into the stores for essential things that we needed, and we had to wear a mask. So I'm assuming around the world there are restrictions like that too. I know that I did see some things going on in Italy, and they had a terrible death count and high sickness levels. And so that was the instruction that we had. And my husband and I really have taken it very seriously. We have stayed home, we've cleaned our homes, we have avoided people. And really, we still are doing that. Even our family members, we have not visited people. So we've taken that very seriously, and we're not sick. And um, I attribute that to our health and well-being.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you for clarifying the questions.
You're very welcome.
Next, so we are at the end of our webinar. I kindly by request Dr. Anisha for delivering vote of thanks.
A very warm good morning to all.
Hello.
First of all, I would like to thank our distinguished speaker, Dr. Dottie Davis, for giving an excellent session of a positive thinking. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I would like to express our profound gratitude to our principal, Dr. Sister Lissy Eddy, for her wholehearted support and guidance. And I would like to extend a special thanks to Sister Jisha Chakundi, the program coordinator and head of the Department of Sociology, Carmel College, and the whole team of Sociology for arranging this webinar. On behalf of Carmel College and Department of Sociology, I thank all the participants for making this webinar a successful one. Once again, thanking you all. Thank you.